All right, let's talk about a book that, let's be honest, a lot of people find pretty confusing. Leviticus. But I promise you, it's not just a dusty old collection of rules. At its heart, it's this incredible story that answers one absolutely massive, profound question.
And this right here, this is the central question. It's the whole reason the book of Leviticus even exists. Think about it. God has just rescued the Israelites from Egypt, and now he's literally living among them in the tabernacle. But that creates a huge problem, a proximity problem. How on earth is this supposed to work?
You see, the core of the issue is this fundamental clash between God's very nature and, well, our nature. And to really get what Leviticus is doing, you first have to understand what the Bible means by God's holiness.
When we talk about holiness, it's so much more than just being good. It means being in a category all by itself. It's about being utterly unique, totally pure, and so powerful that its presence is like a consuming fire to anything that's impure or corrupt. This is the very essence of who God is.
So let's set the scene here. At the end of the book of Exodus, the tabernacle is built. This is God's house, pitched right in the middle of the Israelite camp. But his pure, intensely holy presence among a sinful people creates a seriously dangerous situation. There has to be a bridge, some way to manage this.
And this is where Leviticus comes in and provides the answer. The book lays out a very detailed, very specific system of worship. And these aren't just a bunch of random rituals. This is God's own design, the solution to the holiness problem, showing the people exactly how they could approach him safely.
At the heart of this whole system were 5 main types of offerings, or sacrifices. Each one had a specific job, from dealing with unintentional sin to just saying thank you. But the one crucial point they all made crystal clear was this: sin costs something. A payment is always required.
Now, the people couldn't just bring these sacrifices on their own, so God appointed priests, starting with Aaron and his sons, to act as special representatives. They were the mediators, the go-betweens, the ones who were designated to stand in that dangerous gap between a holy God and his people.
Now, if you're thinking this is all just ancient history, this is where the story gets really incredible. This entire complex system wasn't just a temporary fix. It was a giant, living preview, like a trailer for a movie. A collection of symbols, all pointing forward to something way bigger. So let's look at the first big parallel. The system in Leviticus required endless animal sacrifices, day after day, year after year. They provided a temporary covering for sin, but they were just a shadow, pointing forward to the one, perfect, permanent sacrifice of Jesus, which was offered once for all time. And then there's the priesthood itself. The Israelites had a human high priest to represent them, right? But he was also a sinful man himself who had to offer sacrifices for his own sin. Jesus, on the other hand, becomes our eternal high priest, the perfect mediator who is both fully God and fully man. And then you had the most important day of the entire year, the Day of Atonement. Once a year, the high priest would go into the most holy place to atone for the sins of the whole nation. It was like a giant reset button, but it was only good for 1 year. The cross, though, that was the ultimate Day of Atonement, where our sins weren't just covered for a year, they were taken away forever.
Okay, so knowing that this whole system was pointing to something bigger, what are the key takeaways for us? What does this ancient book have to say to you and me today? Well, Leviticus is absolutely packed with timeless principles that are just as relevant now as they were thousands of years ago.
Let's kick it off with the first and maybe the most foundational lesson of all. It's about the very nature of God.
If there's one thing the entire system of Leviticus just screams, it's this: God takes holiness seriously. He is completely, utterly pure and perfect. Now, that's not meant to scare us away, but it is meant to fill us with a deep sense of reverence and awe. You don't just waltz up to a king casually, and you certainly don't approach the king of the universe that way.
The second lesson flows right out of that first one, and this one is all about the nature of sin.
In our world today, it is so easy to downplay sin, to treat it like it's no big deal. But Leviticus shows us God's perspective. Sin is so serious that it costs a life. The constant flow of sacrifices was this visceral daily reminder that wrongdoing leads to death. It's not a small thing, it requires a huge, significant payment. And that brings us to our third principle, which is actually incredibly hopeful. It reveals so much about God's character.
So, despite the absolute seriousness of His holiness and our sin, the central message here is actually one of grace. God didn't just leave people hopeless. He himself designed the entire system, the sacrifices, the priests, all of it, to create a path for them to come back to him. He always, always provides the way.
Fourth, the book teaches us something absolutely crucial about how we approach God.
There's this chilling story in Leviticus about two of Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu. They offered what the Bible calls unauthorized fire, and they were immediately consumed. The lesson is stark. We have to approach God on His terms, not our own. He wants sincere, obedient worship, not just us going through the motions or making up our own rules.
And that brings us to the fifth and final lesson, which takes all these ideas out of the ancient tabernacle and puts them right into our daily lives.
The second half of Leviticus is just full of instructions about food and relationships and how to conduct yourself every single day. The message is clear. Holiness isn't just a Sunday thing. Because God is holy, His people are called to be set apart in every single area of their lives, reflecting His character to the world around them.
This verse is really the thesis statement for the entire book. It's the standard, and it's the call. It's not a suggestion. It's the very foundation of what a relationship with God is supposed to look like. He calls us to reflect His own perfect nature. So the next time you think about Leviticus, try not to just see a list of rules and sacrifices. See it for what it truly is. This beautiful, profound story of a perfectly holy God who loves His imperfect people so much that He Himself designed the path for them to come home.